He mocked me. Then the judge opened the file. It wasn't even a big mockery. Not at first. Just a laugh. Under his breath. The kind of laugh meant to tell a room full of strangers that you're the joke, and he's the reasonable one. He leaned toward his attorney, shook his head like I was wasting everyone's time, and said loud enough for the front row to hear, "She brought a folder, like that's going to change reality." And I didn't react, because my reaction was the meal. I'd learned that the hard way. So I sat there in courtroom 2A, hands folded, eyes forward, and let him enjoy his moment. His name was Bryce Callahan, and he had always believed that confidence was proof. He believed if he sounded certain enough, if he spoke calmly enough, if he smiled at the right people, the world would rearrange itself to match his version. For years, it did. Until one quiet Thursday morning, the bank called me, and the file started building itself. That was the legal and financial anchor of everything that followed. And it happened fast, within 1 minute of the phone ringing. "Ms. Sloane?" the woman asked. "Yes," I said, standing at my kitchen sink with dishwater on my hands and my daughter's lunchbox open beside me. "This is Morgan Patel with Tri-County Federal, Title and Fraud Prevention. I'm calling about your property at 1187 Carver Street. We received a payoff request and a document submission for a cash-out refinance. Did you authorize that?" My stomach tightened. No. There was a pause, and then her voice softened in that way professionals soften when they're trying not to scare you, but they can't lie. "Okay," she said. "Then I need to tell you something clearly. Someone submitted a power of attorney in your name and attempted to transfer the disbursement funds to an account not listed on your profile. We froze the application. But there is also a home's equity line of credit attached to your property with an outstanding balance. A home equity line of credit attached to my property, outstanding balance." I stared at the kitchen wall like it might stop the words from entering my life. "I never opened a HELOC," I whispered. "I understand," Morgan said. "That's why I'm calling. Please come in today with identification and any relevant court documents. And please don't confront anyone. Let us handle this through the appropriate channels." Don't confront anyone. I almost laughed at that, because confrontation was Bryce's favorite sport. He loved to provoke. He loved to bait you into a scene, then step back and act wounded. And the worst part was, I used to fall for it, not because I was weak, but because I thought fairness was loud. I thought the truth needed volume. Bryce taught me the opposite. He taught me the truth is strongest when it's recorded and delivered by someone who doesn't care about his charm. I hung up, dried my hands, and forced myself to breathe like a person who wasn't suddenly realizing her home might be underwater in debt she didn't create. Upstairs, my daughter Emma yelled, "Mom, my hairbrush!" In the bathroom drawer, I called, making my voice normal, steady, the way mothers do when their insides are screaming. Emma came downstairs a minute later, 8 years old, wearing her school hoodie, cheeks pink, ponytail crooked. "Are we late?" she asked. "No," I said, lifting her lunchbox. "We're good." She watched me too closely, like kids do when they know something shifted but they can't name it yet. "You okay?" she asked. I swallowed. "I'm okay," I lied, because sometimes okay is just a bridge you build until you can reach the other side. I dropped her off at school, smiled at the crossing guard, and drove straight to Tri-County Federal with my hands clenched on the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. In the lobby, Morgan met me with a folder already in her arms. She was mid-30s, hair pulled back, eyes tired but focused. She didn't look at me like I was a dramatic ex-wife. She looked at me like I was a client in danger. She led me to a small office, closed the door, and slid the folder across the desk. "This is what we received," she said. On top was a power of attorney. My name was typed wrong, barely wrong. One letter shifted. The address was correct. The birth date was correct. The signature looked like mine if someone had watched me sign once and tried to recreate it in a hurry. Morgan pointed at the notary stamp. "This notary's commission was revoked," she said. "That's our first major flag." My throat went dry. "So it's fake?" "It appears to be," she said. "But we need your written statement to confirm you didn't authorize it. Then our investigation team will proceed." She flipped to the next page. HELOC statement. The balance made my stomach drop. It wasn't small. It was the kind of number that turns a home into a hostage. My voice shook. "When was this opened?" Morgan checked. 18 months ago. 18 months ago. Bryce and I were still married then, still living in the same house, still pretending things were fine because he could make fine sound believable. Bryce was always good at sounding believable. He was a financial consultant on paper and a magician in real life. He could talk his way into better rates, better terms, better second chances. He could sit across from a banker and make them feel lucky to be in his presence. I used to admire it. Then I learned he used that same talent on me. The marriage started like a story people like to hear. We met at a charity gala where he wore a navy suit and knew the names of everyone important. He asked questions like he genuinely cared. He told me I had a calm energy, like it was a compliment and a claim at the same time. Within a year, we were married. Within 2, we had Emma. And within 4, we bought the house on Carver Street. The house was mine in my heart long before it was mine on paper. I paid the steady parts. My salary as a senior radiology tech didn't swing with the market. It didn't disappear because a client ghosted. It didn't require charm. Bryce liked my stability. He liked that it made his unpredictability look exciting, not dangerous. When we bought the house, my parents helped with the down payment. They wrote the check to escrow and made Bryce sign a separate property acknowledgement, something my father insisted on with the quiet certainty of a man who had seen too many people lose everything because they loved the wrong person. Bryce had laughed then, too. "Your dad watches too much courtroom TV," he joked, and signed without reading because he didn't respect paper unless he was holding it as a weapon. In the years after, Bryce started using money as a mood. If he was happy, we were building wealth. If he was angry, I was ungrateful. If I questioned a purchase, I was controlling. If I asked for transparency, I didn't trust him. One night, after I discovered a new credit card in the mail, I asked him why he opened it. He didn't answer the question. He just smiled and said, "Relax. I handle finances. That's what I do." He made it sound like a job title gave him authority over my life. When I filed for divorce, he acted offended, like I'd broken a contract he never honored. "You'll regret this," he said, leaning against our kitchen counter, like he still owned the space. "You think you're going to take my house?" My house. His house. He'd already claimed it. I didn't argue then. I just hired an attorney. Her name was Alana Reeves, and she was the kind of attorney who listened with her whole face. Calm, sharp, patient. The type who doesn't raise her voice because she doesn't need to. When I told Alana I was afraid Bryce would try to force a sale, She didn't roll her eyes. She asked one question. Do you have documentation of your parents' contribution and the separate property agreement? I nodded. Good, she said. Then we build the file. That became our phrase. Build the file. Not build the drama. Not build the argument. Build the file. So while Bryce told everyone I was emotional and spiteful, I collected evidence like bricks, bank statements, emails, texts where he threatened partition, call logs from cash buyers he sent to pressure me, screenshots of him telling me, if you don't sign, I'll make you homeless. And I didn't respond to his bait. I stayed quiet. I let him hang himself with his own words, while the institutions gathered their own. Back in Morgan's office at the bank, she slid another document toward me, a closing package. Someone signed these, she said, and the disbursement went to an account not associated with you. I swallowed. Can you tell who signed? We have surveillance, she said. We can't show it yet without legal process, but our internal team is reviewing. We will also file reports as required. Required, I echoed. She nodded. This is serious, Ms. Sloane. I looked down at the HELOC balance again and felt anger flare. Hot. Familiar. The kind that would make me call Bryce and scream until my throat burned. But Morgan's warning echoed. Don't confront, so I didn't call. I went straight to Alana's office. Alana read the documents without blinking, then set them down slowly. He did it, she said, not as a guess. As a conclusion. My voice cracked. How could he open a HELOC without me knowing? Alana tilted her head. You said he works in finance. He knows which doors to knock on. He also knows you trusted him enough to not check every record. I felt my cheeks burn with shame, but Alana didn't let me drown in it. This isn't your fault, she said. It's a crime, and crimes leave trails. She leaned forward. You're going to do exactly what the bank asked. You'll give a statement. You'll freeze your credit. You'll change your passwords. And you'll let the bank do something Bryce can't control. What? I whispered. Speak on record, she said. That week, everything escalated the way storms do. Not with one big explosion, but with constant pressure. Every few days, every few minutes of my life feeling like it might tip. Bryce sensed the shift before he knew the details, because men like him feel when their leverage is slipping. The first thing he did was try to provoke me publicly. He showed up at Emma's dance studio on a Wednesday afternoon, leaning against the front desk like a hero, Dad waiting for his kid. Other parents smiled at him because Bryce was charming when he wanted to be. When I walked in, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hey, I'm glad you came. We need to talk about the house." I didn't stop walking. "Talk through counsel," I said, calm. He laughed. "Counsel? You're really doing this?" I didn't answer. He followed me down the hallway. "You know you can't keep it, right? The bank will sort it out. They'll call it due. You'll be begging." I kept moving. He leaned closer. "Or you can be smart and sign my agreement." He waved a folder like it was a prize. I didn't touch it. I picked Emma up, smiled at her, and left without looking back. In the parking lot, my legs shook so hard I had to grip the steering wheel and breathe. That was escalation 1. Public pressure, humiliation attempts, a performance meant to make me feel small. Then came escalation 2. My phone started lighting up with unknown numbers again. "Hi, ma'am. Are you still looking to sell?" "No." "We can close in 7 days." "No." "Foreclosure is stressful." I hung up and logged it. Alana told me not to block them. "Let them show the pattern," she said. Then escalation 3. A letter appeared taped to my door. Notice of default. My heart slammed against my ribs. My hands shook as I ripped it down. Then I saw the mistakes. Wrong lender name, wrong loan number, cheap paper, fake, a scare tactic. I opened my doorbell camera app and rewound. There was Bryce, in daylight, taping it to my door, stepping back, smiling at the camera like he was proud of himself. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, because that smile wasn't just cruelty, it was arrogance. He believed he could scare me into making his life easier. I sent the video to Alana's. Her reply was one sentence. Perfect. Perfect. That word startled me, but she was right. Because every fake paper Bryce created made the real file heavier. By early September, the bank's fraud unit had completed enough internal review to share limited findings with Alana. Morgan called Alana on speaker in my kitchen, her voice steady. "We have surveillance," Morgan said. The person signing under Ms. Sloane's name was male. The identification used had Ms. Sloane's name but did not match her photo. I covered my mouth with my hand. Morgan continued. "We also traced the disbursement account. It is linked to Mercer Callahan Consulting, LLC, Bryce's company, on record." My throat tightened. So it went to him. Morgan's voice didn't change. "Yes, we are filing a suspicious activity report. We are also unwinding internal lien placement procedures as appropriate. Law enforcement will likely contact Mrs. Sloane for a victim statement." A suspicious activity report. ASAR. Those were words Bryce couldn't charm away. Alana looked at me, eyes sharp. "Now," she whispered. "Now the bank speaks." Bryce still didn't know we had that level of proof, so he kept pretending. He filed a motion in family court claiming I was withholding marital property and demanded an order to list the house. He showed up to the hearing in October with a new attorney, a flashy man named Cameron Ross, who talked fast and smiled like he owned the room. And that's where the mocking happened. That's where Bryce looked at my binder, my thick, organized binder with tabs and dates and printed evidence, and laughed like I was a child playing adult. Cameron spoke first. "Your Honor," he said, voice smooth, "my client has been unlawfully denied access to jointly owned property. Ms. Sloane is refusing reasonable resolution. We request the court order immediate listing of the residence and a division of proceeds." Bryce sat behind him, relaxed, smirking, as if the outcome had already been decided by his confidence. Alana rose slowly. "Your Honor," she said, "before any discussion of listing, we need to address encumbrances placed against this property without my client's knowledge." Cameron blinked, then smiled. "Encumbrances? Ms. Sloane has full access to financial records. If she didn't review them..." Alana didn't flinch. "We have documentation from Tri-County Federal that a HELOC was opened using fraudulent documentation and funds were disbursed to an account linked to Mr. Callahan's business entity." The courtroom shifted. Not loud, but you could feel it, like the air changed pressure. Judge Maren Whitfield, a woman in her late 50s, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing, leaned forward. "A HELOC," she repeated. Cameron chuckled lightly. "Your Honor, we deny any wrongdoing. This is an attempt to distract from the issue at hand. The deed is joint." Alana held up a hand. "Your Honor, we have the bank's fraud unit reference number and preliminary findings. We are requesting the court open the sealed financial compliance file submitted pursuant to subpoena." Bryce's smirk froze. The judge looked at the clerk. "Do we have a sealed submission?" The clerk checked. "Yes, Your Honor. sealed exhibits from Tri-County Federal. Bryce leaned toward Cameron, whispering, and Cameron's smile tightened a fraction. Judge Whitfield's gaze lifted to Bryce. "Mr. Callahan," she said, voice calm, "do you have any connection to a HELOC opened on 1187 Carver Street within the last 2 years?" Bryce stood slowly, like he was still trying to control the moment. "No, Your Honor," he said smoothly. "She's confused. She's emotional. He glanced at me and smiled, the same smile he used when he wanted me to feel ridiculous. "She brought a folder," he added, a soft laugh. "Like that's going to change reality." Judge Whitfield didn't react. She simply said, "Bring me the file." The clerk walked forward with a sealed envelope. My heart hammered. Bryce's mockery hung in the air like smoke. And then the judge broke the seal. Paper crackled. Judge Whitfield opened the folder and started reading. The room went so quiet I could hear someone's pen click. She read for a long time. Long enough that Bryce's confidence began to leak. He shifted his weight. He swallowed. His smile faded. Cameron leaned in, whispering, and Bryce shook his head, like he was trying to reject the reality being formed in ink. Judge Whitfield looked up. Her eyes were cold. "Mr. Callahan," she said, "Tri-County Federal's fraud unit identifies a cash-out HELOC disbursement directed to Mercer Callahan Consulting, LLC, a business registered to you." Bryce's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Judge Whitfield continued, voice steady. "The bank's surveillance images show a mail signer. The identification presented was altered. The notary stamp used was invalid. The bank filed a suspicious activity report. There is also evidence of attempted address changes and online credential resets, originating from IP addresses associated with your office." Bryce's face turned a shade lighter, as if the blood couldn't decide where to go. Cameron tried to stand. "Your Honor." Judge Whitfield lifted a hand. "Sit." Cameron sat. The judge's gaze stayed on Bryce. "Do you understand the seriousness of what is in this file?" she asked. Bryce swallowed. "Your Honor, I don't know what the bank thinks it saw." The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "The bank doesn't think, Mr. Callahan," she said. "The bank documents, the bank records, the bank reports, and this court will not ignore documented evidence of fraud." Bryce's shoulders stiffened. She's making accusations because she wants leverage. Judge Whitfield's eyes narrowed. "Leverage," she repeated. "Leverage is precisely what fraud creates." Then she turned to Alana. "Counsel," she said, "what relief are you seeking today?" Alana's voice was calm. "Your Honor, we seek denial of the motion to compel sale, protective orders, attorney's fees, and a referral to the county prosecutor for review of fraudulent encumbrance, identity theft, and filing of false instruments. Referral, prosecutor." Bryce flinched as if those words were physical. Judge Whitfield nodded slowly. "Motion to compel sale is denied. Temporary protective order is granted. No contact with Ms. Sloane except through counsel. No contact with Tri-County Federal. No contact with the county recorder's office. Attorney's fees to respondent. And I am referring this matter for criminal review." Bryce's mouth moved. This is insane." Judge Whitfield looked at him with something like disgust. "No," she said. "What's insane is mocking a file you haven't read." There it was. The title of my life. He mocked me. Then the judge opened the file. That hearing was the pivot, but it wasn't the ending, because Bryce didn't collapse in one day. Men like him don't. They try to wriggle out. They try to rewrite. They try to make everyone believe the paper is wrong. And every time they try, they add more paper. After the hearing, Bryce didn't stop calling. He just stopped calling from his own number. Unknown numbers, cousins, friends, a blocked line at 2:12 a.m., where he breathed into the phone for 5 seconds before whispering, "You think you won." Alana told me to save everything, so I did. Then Bryce tried to settle, not because he wanted peace, because he wanted silence. His attorney sent an offer. Bryce would waive claims to the house if I agreed to drop defamatory accusations and release him from liability. I laughed when I read it, not because it was funny, but because it was so Bryce. He wanted me to sign away my right to truth. Alana wrote back one line. No. That was it. No counteroffer, no negotiation, just no. And Bryce responded with escalation. He went to my workplace. He waited in the hospital parking lot, like he used to wait for me when he wanted to surprise me back when surprises were romantic, not predatory. When I walked out after a 12-hour shift, he stepped from behind a car and said, "We need to talk." My body went cold. I lifted my phone. "You're violating the order," I said. He smiled, the mockery returning. "Call the cops. See who believes you." I didn't argue. I walked back into the hospital, found security, and reported it. Security walked me to my car. Bryce watched from a distance, jaw tight, and then drove away. Not because he was scared of me, because he was scared of cameras, and reports, and paper. By November, the county prosecutor's office had opened a case. An investigator named Dana Holloway, no relation to the judge, called me and asked for a victim statement. Her voice was blunt. "Ms. Sloane, I need you to tell me what you know, what you suspect, and what you can prove." I told her everything. I didn't dramatize. I didn't plead. I gave dates, times, documents, because emotion is not evidence. And Bryce had spent years trying to make me emotional, so no one would take me seriously. Dana asked, "Did you sign any HELOC documents?" "No." "Did you authorize power of attorney?" "No." "Did your ex have access to your identification?" "Yes," I admitted. "We were married. He had access to our house, our files, our safe." Dana paused. "He used marital access to commit fraud," she said. "That happens more than you think." More than you think. That sentence made me sick and strangely steady, because it meant I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. I was a pattern, and patterns get prosecuted. While the criminal case moved slowly, the civil pieces tightened. Tri-County Federal began the process of unwinding the fraudulent HELOC lien as to me, using their internal fraud determinations. They placed protective flags on my property. They issued letters confirming I was a verified identity theft victim. Letters. The kind that change how institutions treat you. Letters Bryce couldn't mock. But Bryce kept trying anyway. He filed a new motion claiming I was alienating Emma because the protective order limited contact and required exchanges at a supervised center until the investigation clarified safety. He stood in front of the family judge again and said, "She's using false accusations to keep my daughter from me." Judge Whitfield didn't even look impressed. She glanced at the updated file, then at Bryce, and said, "Mr. Callahan, your actions are the reason your access is restricted. This court will not prioritize your comfort over a child's stability." Stability. That word mattered to me more than winning, because I wasn't trying to punish Bryce. I was trying to keep Emma's world intact. Emma didn't understand the details, but she felt the tension like static in the air. One night in December, she crawled into my bed and whispered, "Is Dad mad at you?" I stroked her hair and swallowed the lump in my throat. "Dad is dealing with grown-up problems," I said softly. She nodded, then asked the question that sliced through me. "Are we going to lose the house?" I pulled her closer. "No," I said. "We're not." I meant it, but my body still didn't fully believe it yet. Because even with letters and files, the fear lived in my muscles. It lived in how I checked the driveway before I opened my door. It lived in how I jumped when the phone rang. It lived in how I slept with my keys beside my bed. Bryce had trained me to be vigilant. Now I had to train myself to be safe. The big twist had already happened in court. The judge opening the file. But the real power reversal needed something Bryce couldn't spin, a consequence he couldn't negotiate. In January, Bryce was indicted. Dana called me and said, "We're moving forward with charges: identity theft, forgery, attempted mortgage fraud, filing false instruments." My knees went weak. "Are you sure?" I whispered, not because I doubted her, but because certainty still felt foreign after years of Bryce's alternate realities. Dana's voice was flat. "We're sure." Bryce's arraignment happened on a gray morning, with sleet tapping the courthouse windows. The courtroom was different this time. Criminal court had a heavier air, less performance, more consequence. Bryce stood at the defense table in a suit that suddenly looked like a costume. His new criminal attorney was older, quieter, less flashy. No smiles, no swagger. When the prosecutor read the charges, Bryce's face tightened, but he tried to look unimpressed. Then the prosecutor said, "The defendant used fraudulent documents to obtain a home equity line of credit secured by the victim's residence and directed funds to an account linked to his company." Linked to his company. On record. The judge set conditions: no contact, surrender passport, restricted financial activity, report to pretrial services, restricted financial activity, Bryce's favorite playground, fenced. After court, Bryce's mother tried to stare me down in the hallway. She was the kind of woman who used polite smiles like knives. "This is what you wanted," she hissed as I walked past. I didn't stop. I didn't respond. I had nothing left to prove to her. I'd spent too many years arguing with people who thought a charming man was automatically right. Now I had something better than arguments. I had a file, and I had a system that finally cared. Bryce didn't take the indictment quietly. He couldn't. Silence would feel like death to him. He tried to contact me through Emma. At the supervised exchange center, he handed Emma a new tablet and whispered something to her. She came back to me afterward, eyes wide. "Dad said you're lying," she whispered. "He said the judge doesn't know you like he does." My chest tightened, anger rising hot, but I kept my voice calm. "What else did he say?" She hesitated. "He said if you stop being mean, everything will go back to normal." Normal. Bryce's favorite fantasy. Normal was him controlling the narrative. Normal was me shrinking to keep peace. I knelt in front of Emma, took her hands, and said softly, "Sweetheart, you don't have to carry messages between adults. That's not your job." Her eyes filled. "Is Dad going to get in trouble?" I exhaled slowly. "Dad is already in trouble," I said gently, "because of choices he made. Not because of you. Not because of me." She nodded, lip trembling, and I hugged her until her shoulders stopped shaking. After that, Alana filed a motion to tighten supervised visitation conditions. The court granted it. Bryce was warned explicitly. No discussion of the case with the child. No undermining the other parent. No third-party contact. And still, he tried. Because Bryce didn't respect boundaries. He respected enforcement. The enforcement came in March, when Tri-County Federal completed its fraud determination and recorded a lien release as to me for the fraudulent HELOC. The bank's letter arrived in a thick envelope, plain, corporate, unemotional. It said, in careful language, that the HELOC was unauthorized, that I was not liable, and that the bank was pursuing recovery from the responsible parties. Responsible parties. Plural. I read that line 3 times. Then I sat at my kitchen table and cried, hard and quiet. The kind of crying that comes when your nervous system realizes you can finally unclench. Because now, even if Bryce shouted on the street corner that I was a liar, the bank's record didn't care. And the county recorder's website didn't care. And the title report didn't care. Truth had become permanent. Bryce's response to the lien release was predictable. He panicked. He tried to settle again, this time with a different tone. His attorney sent an offer. Bryce would plead to lesser charges if I agreed not to pursue a civil suit. Alana showed me the letter and said, "He wants you to trade silence for convenience." I stared at the page. What happens if I say no? Alana's eyes were steady. Then the system continues. The bank continues. The prosecutor continues. And Bryce continues losing control. I thought about Emma. I thought about the years Bryce had used my fear to make me compliant. I thought about the way he laughed at my binder in court. And I said, no. So we didn't sign. And Bryce's world kept tightening. The power reversal began showing up in places you wouldn't think to look. His business credit line was frozen. A licensing renewal got delayed. A client canceled a contract after Googling his name and seeing fraud charges. A supplier demanded cash up front. Bryce started showing up to court, looking tired. Not tired like a man who worked hard. Tired like a man who couldn't charm the walls back open. Then came the moment that felt like the final scene in a movie. But it wasn't a movie. It was just paperwork, enforced. Bryce still had belongings in my garage. Old tools, boxes, a filing cabinet he forgot to pick up when he moved out. For months, those items had been his excuse to hover. "I'll stop by to grab my stuff," he'd text. "I just need my files. It's my property." But after the criminal case and the tightened orders, he couldn't come near my home, so his attorney filed for a supervised property retrieval. The court granted it, with a sheriff escort and a strict no trespass order attached. The date was set for a Saturday morning in late April. I didn't sleep the night before, not because I was scared he'd win, because my body still remembered what his presence felt like. Even when you know you're safe, your nerves don't always believe it yet. At 9:58 a.m., a sheriff's SUV rolled onto Carver Street and parked by my curb. My heart jumped anyway. Emma stood beside me in the living room, peeking through the blinds. "Is that for us?" she whispered. I shook my head. "No," I said softly. "It's for the process." The deputy knocked, professional, calm. "Ms. Sloane?" he asked. "Yes." "Mr. Callahan has 20 minutes, he said. "Garage area only. No contact. If he violates, he's removed." I nodded, throat tight. Emma's hand squeezed mine. Then Bryce's car pulled up. He got out slower than I expected. No smug walk, no performance suit, just jeans and a jacket like he was trying to blend into the day. He looked at my house like it had betrayed him. The deputy spoke to him first, clear and firm. "Mr. Callahan, rules are clear." Bryce nodded without looking at me. He walked to the garage, carried boxes to his trunk in silence. He moved fast, like he wanted the moment to end before it tattooed itself on his ego. Emma whispered, "Is Dad mad?" I swallowed. Dad is dealing with consequences, I said quietly. Bryce heard that. His head snapped up. For a second, his eyes met mine, and I saw the thing beneath his charm. Not remorse, not love, just disbelief. Like he still couldn't accept that a judge, a bank, and a file had chosen truth over him. He set another box down and muttered, "You really did this." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step forward. I just said, "You did this." His jaw tightened. I didn't do anything. He started, and then he stopped. Because the deputy's presence made him remember he couldn't perform his usual gaslight with an audience that didn't care. The deputy checked his watch. 5 minutes. Bryce shoved the last box into his trunk and slammed it. He stood there breathing hard, looking like he wanted to say something that would cut. Then he looked at Emma. "Hey," he said, voice suddenly gentle, like he remembered how to act like a father. Emma hesitated. I didn't pull her away. I didn't push her forward. I just stayed still, letting the supervised space do what it was designed to do. Bryce's eyes softened for a heartbeat. "I love you," he said. Emma's voice was small. "I love you too." Then Bryce looked at me again, and the softness vanished. He leaned toward the deputy, voice bitter. "This is ridiculous." The deputy didn't blink. "Time's up." Bryce stared like he wanted to argue, but arguing with the law is like arguing with gravity. So he got in his car. Before he pulled away, he rolled down the window and called out, "You think you're so smart with your folders?" I watched him, steady, and I said the only truth that mattered. "I didn't have to be smart," I said. "I just had to stop to being quiet for you and start being quiet for the record." His face tightened. Then he drove away. The sheriff's SUV followed a minute later, and when the street went quiet, the silence felt different. Not tense, not waiting, just peaceful. That's what people don't tell you about power reversal. They think it looks like revenge. They think it looks like you standing on a courthouse step smiling for a camera. But it doesn't. It looks like a woman standing in her own doorway, holding her child's hand, while the man who mocked her binder carries his boxes under supervision. It looks like paper doing what paper was always meant to do: hold truth steady when people won't. In May, Bryce took a plea deal: probation, restitution, community service, a record. He didn't go to prison, but he lost what he valued more than freedom: his illusion of being untouchable. He lost the ability to say, "That's not real," and have people nod, because now reality had a stamp: a bank letter, a judge's order, a county record, a file. And one evening, weeks after the plea, Emma and I sat on our porch eating popsicles. The air smelled like cut grass. The sun was warm on our legs. The world looked ordinary. Emma licked her popsicle and said, "Mom?" "Yeah, baby." She looked at me seriously. "Why did Dad laugh at you in court?" My throat tightened. I could have told her Bryce was cruel. I could have told her he was broken. I could have told her he was a liar. But I didn't want to build her identity on hatred. So I told her the truth that might protect her someday. "Because he thought being loud meant being right," I said softly. Emma frowned, but the judge didn't care. I smiled, small and tired and real. "No," I said. "The judge cared about what was in the file." Emma nodded slowly, like she was filing it away in her own mind. Then she asked, "So, if someone lies, you just write it down?" I laughed quietly. "Sometimes," I said. "Sometimes you stay calm. You gather proof, and you let the right people speak." She looked out at the street, thoughtful. Like the bank. Like the bank, I said. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. The weight of her trust pressed into me like a blessing. And as the evening cooled, I realized something that felt like a lesson carved into bone. Bryce mocked me because he believed my truth needed his permission. He believed my evidence needed his approval. He believed my life could be rewritten if he laughed loud enough. But the judge opened the file, and the file didn't laugh. It didn't argue. It didn't get emotional. It just existed, stamped, recorded, permanent. And in the end, that was the most powerful voice in the room. Not mine, not his, the record. So if you ever find yourself across from someone who mocks you for being prepared, for being organized, for keeping receipts, for building your binder while they build their story, let them laugh, let them mock, let them enjoy the performance. And then, let the judge open the file.